Christopher Petronis, and today I'm trying to represent a typical British soldier from the French and Indian War period, which would be 1750s to 1760s. This is specifically a uniform from the British 44th Regiment, who served extensively here in the colonies during that war. They were basically on every major campaign from 1755 right on up through the end of the war in 1763. What I'm dressed as is a Grenadier. And so in your typical regiment, there were approximately 700 men on paper, and of those 700 men, they were divided into companies. Most of your companies would be the regular line infantry or battalion companies. You would have one company of light infantrymen. They were considered to be the best marksmen, the most agile, the quickest guys who could be moving through the woods, kind of scouting ahead of the army. And then you'd have one company of Grenadiers. And the Grenadiers had originally been billed as the guys who throw grenades. Go figure, the name Grenadier, right? So they throw grenades. And that was one of the reasons why they had these tall caps, because the idea behind that was if you had gotten to the point where you're ready to throw a grenade in battle, well then you had to be able to use your sling on your musket and put it across your back to toss that grenade. Well, if you had a large tricorn hat, you'd never be able to get this musket slung across your back. So that was one of the origins of why you would have a Grenadier tall, pointy cap. Plus it made you look a little bit more taller and more imposing. The Grenadiers at that time were considered to be the shock troops of the army. They were the elite of the regiments. And so if you saw a company full of 70 guys all with these big pointy hats coming at you, that basically signaled, uh-oh, it's the Grenadiers' turn to do their thing in battle. And again, they were considered the elite of the army. They would often put the various Grenadier companies of each regiment together and form Grenadier battalions to, again, give that shock effect on the battlefield. So that being said, I'm wearing, that uniform of the time period, which looks kind of hot and heavy and bulky, and it is. So when people say, are you hot? Well, I am, but they were hot back then as well. It works out really well in the in England or in Northwest Europe, where it's fairly chilly at times, but in America, in the dead of summer, an all-wool uniform can get somewhat incommodious. The idea of wool, though, is it also wears very well. It's a very durable fabric, so if you were on campaign for an extended amount of time, that's going to hold up better than, say, a linen or a cotton uniform. So, what is all this stuff I'm carrying? If you saw the earlier segment, we talked about the Brown Bess musket. This is the standard infantry weapon of this time period. It was in service in the British Army for well over 100 years with varying degrees of modification. So if you want to hear about the Brown Bess and how it's fired, well, we can go back to the other segment, so we won't repeat ourselves there. But the coat here is very distinctive. It's what they call a regimental coat. And in the British Army, each infantry regiment had different lace on their coat and different colored facings to denote who they were. And so in this case, the 44th Regiment, as you can see, has yellow facings. It follows civilian fashion to a certain degree of the time. It's just the way things worked back then. And again, it's not the easiest to get around in the field with, but it follows fashion and is durable. It's also very warm, and wool, when it gets wet, will still keep you warm. Even if, again, if it's soaking wet, it's still going to trap your body heat where other fabrics won't. So it sort of makes sense there. Not really. On my back, you can see I have this furry, almost like a knapsack type. That is used for carrying your essentials, or maybe a spare shirt, spare set of stockings, something of that nature. Everything you need should basically fit in that backpack when you're moving from point A to point B. Here you see my cartridge box. This holds my individually pre-wrapped rounds that I will be firing out of the musket. And because, again, we are the Grenadiers and the shock troops, they expect us to be in combat perhaps a little bit longer than other troops. So in addition to my main cartridge box, I'm also carrying a belly box here for extra ammunition that you might not see with the regular line battalion troops. You'll notice on my side I have a short sword or a hanger. Again, symbol of the fact that I'm a Grenadier, and if push comes to shove in combat and my musket fails me and the bayonet on the musket fails me, worst case scenario, we've got the sword as a backup. In all honesty though, there's very, very little documentation about them actually using these swords by the mid to late 18th century. Very often, once the Army goes out on campaign and they're every day marching from point A to point B, the swords get put back into storage. But in the meantime, it looks nice, and it gives you something else to polish, because we all know with soldiers, idle hands are the devil's playground. So, again, that's just a fact of your Grenadier. You're carrying a sword. We just looked at the bayonet. I have a tin canteen on my left. Obviously, you need to keep hydrated. Tin canteens were fairly light, although tin at that time period, believe it or not, was fairly expensive. It was cheaper to have a wooden canteen. Tin it took a while to process, because it was the sheet iron that was dipped and everything. But hey, nothing but the best for the Army, so we've got tin canteens. On my right hand side, I'm carrying a haversack. This is where all my issued rations go, be it salt pork or some form of meat or bread. Whatever you are issued to get through your day goes in the haversack. So that's this big bulky item over here. When all is said and done, your average soldier is carrying anywhere between 60 to 100 pounds on his back once you add in all the ammunition and the accoutrements. So it's not exactly a light load, but many things haven't changed. They say in history, more things change, the more they stay the same. If you look at infantry guys today, they have their anti-ballistic vests, they have all the stuff that they need to carry on their back, so certain things haven't changed. But that's what I'm trying to represent today, and that's it in a nutshell. So thank you.